What's up, my peeps? It's not.
What's
Easter.
up, low gang?
That's actually that's on topic. Actually, right there.
Logan Paul?
Oh, I thought we were talking about like low heads.
Oh, low heads. No, I'm talking about Logan Paul, but yeah, that makes sense.
I love how we have one. So we're going live on Instagram as we kind of normally do. I just looked at it, and right now a guy was like, "You don't have style."
Yeah, do you have no style?
Whoops. The jury's out, guys. Anyway, welcome
Our
back
podcast
to
is just called Direction now.
Yeah. It's about us reviewing Google Maps and Apple Maps and seeing how they which one's better. By the way, you should not use Apple Maps. Let me just tell you that. There are a couple times when people use them. I think me and Spencer were going with a friend to a Halloween party, and a friend of ours used Apple Maps for something, and then it took him somewhere totally different. And I'm like, where are we? He's like, I went to where the directions are. And I'm like, well, Google Maps says we still have to keep going. He's like, oh, I'm not using that. I'm like, well, that's why you were lost.
I remember when Apple Maps like first was launched, and the first week it was like, it keeps telling me to like drive into the ocean. Like people
it says turn left here. Yeah. No, you go around. I'm turning left now.
Yeah. But I was like, it's a robot uprising. It's like, this is how they kill us. Bending Rodriguez. Speedy Gonzalez. That was before we started recording. Anyway, for those of you who don't know, and if you have still listened to us after we're like a minute and a half into this is Style and Direction, a menswear podcast without the stuffiness. I am your host, Ethan Wong. I'm your other host, Spencer Oddie.
And you guys asked for it. Not really.
No one asked for this.
No one asked for this, but we did it anyway. We watched the Ralph Lauren documentary on HBO Go. Now, which one is it?
I have had both. So for the listeners, here's my quick history with HBO.
Okay.
I have never had HBO, or so I thought. So over the summer, I was paying for an HBO subscription so I could watch.
It's not television.
Shows. And then I discovered that my dad has HBO through Time Warner. I guess it's now Spectrum. But so I didn't need to be paying for it at all. So I stopped paying for it, and now I'm just on my the whichever one comes with your cable service. But here's the problem with that: the one that comes with your cable subscription is not going to include HBO Max, the new streaming service that's coming out. So if you want to get that, you're going to have to pay an extra fee.
This is why pirating is going to come back.
Yeah.
If it already had, if I remember the old days of allegedly I was torrenting. Allegedly.
Parody.
There we go. Yeah, I'm Pirate Bay.
Yar!
Yar. There be pirates. Anyway, so we watched the documentary, and we thought it'd be cool to kind of talk about it and kind of talk about our experience with Ralph Lauren, because we're such good friends with him.
Yeah, Ralph. He was on the first episode, but unfortunately lost the audio, so...
Yeah, he was like, how the fuck do I export this?
Yeah.
he sent us the project file, but not the exported audio. And then when I asked him, he's like, I don't know what you're talking about. And then hung up the phone.
This little inside joke for all you podcast heads out there. I don't know.
Yeah.
People who know about audio engineering.
It's not even that. All you got to do is export the audio. It's not hard. You don't send over your Word application. You export your Word document and into a fucking PDF, and then you send that in.
Yeah, there's just there's a reason we haven't done interviews in months.
It's this. This is why people don't know how to be tech savvy, which means for future guests we'll have to find people who know how to do that.
Or we'll just have to record the audio from our end and be okay with the audio not.
I was going to make a joke saying that there's not many people who have done college radio and are into menswear. So
nice.
Yeah. Anyway, let's talk about it. So, Spencer, what's your experience with Ralph Lauren? Were you ever did your parents ever grow up buying polo or?
I think I probably owned some polos. I don't know.
PPs?
PP. But it wasn't
Pineapple PP.
But it was never Ralph Lauren was never a huge. I mean, it's again, it wasn't until I started caring about clothes that I started really getting into Ralph Lauren. And I had the realization when I was like, in middle school, I Googled Ralph Lauren and was like, holy shit, it's only been around since like 1967 and Ralph Lauren is still alive. I was like, I think I just kind of assumed it was like this old brand because of how like famous it was and like
and it
how
has like
classic
the kind of,
it was. Yeah.
Yeah, and it has like a waspy name, Ralph Lauren.
Exactly.
You know.
But yeah, I mean, like as a kid, I mean, there was never like, I was never like, ooh, I want the fucking, like, I want the little polo, like the horse on my polo shirt. I never really cared about that. But yeah.
See, for me, I think because my mom, so people who don't follow my Instagram, I post pictures of my mom every once in a while, like whenever I have lunch with her, and she's a very well-dressed woman. She kind of has like this, like love affair with like Americana, very very trad Ivy, maybe a little bit like designer, but I'm pretty sure she's the reason why I knew about like Ralph Lauren as a kid. She would like wear their dresses, or she'd aspire to wear their dresses. I'm pretty sure when I was a kid I had like a polo bear like sweater from like Macy's, you know,
because you have the polo bear like
towels. Yeah, I do. If on my like birthday, I think I took a picture of me like with like my two polo bear towels, which is really fun.
It's super sick. I love those.
Yeah. And I'm pretty sure I must have had like, you know, like a duffel coat or something from back in the day. But yeah, even like you said, like even as a kid, like I didn't really want the polos. I kind of knew that they were a little too much branding. My parents, maybe they had like a t-shirt, like a pajama shirt that had like the embroidered polo player on it. But you know, when you get to this might not be like a thing that Spencer knows, but like when I got into like high school, there are memes like 9gag, and it's like, oh, like the rich Chinese student in your class would be wearing like head to toe polo because, you know, it is like a stereotype that a lot of Asian immigrants or people from like China or whatever will like something with heavy American branding. And I saw it firsthand in my school, which is predominantly Asian. You know, even when my cousins or so would like come to the United States, my grandparents would go to like to Macy's or JCPenney, wherever you get like the cheaper end Ralph Lauren stuff, and then buy stuff from there to give to family members.
It's funny because those memes you're talking about, I think they still exist, but now it's like the rich like Asian foreign exchange student. It's all like hype beast shit.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, it's like I still see those memes every once in a while.
Yeah, there's a good TikTok that's like, you know, how Asians dress like per specific ethnicity, and it's the Chinese one is all hype, like Spencer said. But yeah, I distinctly remember also like, you know, seeing how Ralph Lauren kind of worked in a sense, like, you know, when you would go to the mall, you'd see like the advertisements, or like, you know, when my parents first bought me like Esquire magazines, I didn't really read them. I probably brought it for my dad, and he passed them on to me like, hey, you should dress up too or whatever, or because I used to wear plaid shorts and like graphic nerdy t-shirts.
Hey, me too, baby. Plaid short gang.
Yeah, fedoras.
Yeah, I didn't wear fedoras. I didn't have the plaid shorts. I wore jean shorts too.
Oh God.
Yeah.
But yeah, I used to see like, you know, like these very striking images that, you know, like the Bruce Weber images that we'll get into later. But Rachel Green from Friends worked at Ralph Lauren in the show, and like, you know, that was like one of my first, you know, forays into like what the fashion world was like. You know, oh, you have to forecast, you gotta be a buyer, you gotta think about like upcoming seasons. And in this particular episode, Rachel's boss thinks that Rachel is sleeping with Ralph Lauren.
Oh, wow.
And every time they have a discussion about it, Ralph actually gets into the elevator, and he doesn't say anything. He's just there wearing like a sport coat with fucking like cowboy jeans and a big old belt buckle like he always does.
Yeah.
He just walks in and goes like, hello, Rachel, and like walks out, and then the boss goes, I knew it. And it's like, it's really funny, and it's really cool. Like, I was like, oh, that's Ralph Lauren, that's the man. And I'm like, wait, he's like alive, and he's like, you know, a fairly like younger guy, you know, that you would think like, you know, Valentino or like fucking Versace or something, you know, like he's like a contemporary, but he's such associated with like classic American style for both men and women, which is pretty insane to me.
Yeah, it's like I can't imagine like the fashion world. Like I can't imagine like going into a mall and not seeing like Ralph Lauren branding somewhere. And that's like something that they talk about in the documentary, is like how he completely like dominated the market, which is, it's insane.
Yeah. I mean, even like his effect on like vintage is so big, because I think like I didn't like, you know, after, you know, we got into like vintage, I kind of just forgot about vintage. I forgot about like modern designers. I didn't go to J. Crew, you know, or me and Spencer didn't even until like recently,
Yeah.
in our entire menswear journey. But like a lot of vintage people had only good things to say about Ralph Lauren. Like apparently, like this guy, again, I didn't really know much about him other than my mom would like to shop there. But like he would do like full cut trousers, pleated, pleats, pleated pleats, PPs. But like 3-roll-2, classic American clothing, that you technically could get away with for like a modern interpretation of vintage. And you couldn't get that anywhere else. You couldn't go to like H&M and get that. You couldn't really go to like Abercrombie and Fitch and get that.
And even like from his line that they had at like fucking Macy's, which is like, I don't know how much control that he has over it, or if it's just kind of like...
Yeah, for those who don't know, like a lot of stuff like that go through different pipelines, like outlets, are usually not designed or even made by the actual parent group. But go ahead.
But yeah, it's like, I think his Macy's, like his like outlet line is like Lauren by Ralph Lauren or something like that. But like when I worked at Macy's, it's like I saw some of it and I didn't buy any of it, but I was like, like a lot of the cloth that it had like wasn't bad. It's like you had like really good like tweeds, some like nice herringbones and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And it's like maybe the cut wasn't great, but it's like the cloth was really good.
Yeah, and it's like a couple of times when I would like thrift stuff, I would find like Lauren by Ralph Lauren stuff or old polo. Actually, one of the first things I got from Put This On, through their eBay thing that Spencer does, was like a 70s polo Ralph Lauren suit, like a very early in his career.
Oh, was that the cotton
full
one?
Suit? No, it was the gray one.
Three-piece,
the gray 3-piece. That it was like wide lapels, straight leg or like flat front pants, but like they had like side tab adjusters and like an extended tab closure on the front, and it was super cool. I unfortunately got it altered beyond the point of wearability for me, at least, because I got it shortened. I got it like taken in or whatever. My friend Jay has it. I don't know if he still wears it. It's still in his closet.
But your big problem with it was the with his button stance, right?
Yeah, I got it shortened, and the button stance was really low.
Because we'll get into that. I mean, that we'll get into it, but that seems like kind of like, again, I have nothing but good things to say about Ralph Lauren, but he does like low button stances. It seems.
Yeah. I mean, clearly, and you'll get this from the documentary when we discuss it in a little bit.
The documentary, if we haven't mentioned, is called Very Ralph, right?
Yeah, it's called Very Ralph.
Not Real Ralph, as I originally thought it was called.
R.R.
Yeah.
George R.R. Martin. He wasn't really concerned about reproducing things, even though he does kind of do that. He does like put a lot of spin on certain things. But like anyway, this suit, it's a gray worsted suit. It looked, if you thought about it, like kind of 30s, very like kind of strong shoulders, nipped waist,
and even had a short
high
waistcoat,
rise.
if I recall.
Yeah, short waistcoat. Yeah, really cool. And then I also got like, I think this was like last year or 2 years ago. I got like a cotton DB from him that unfortunately might be a little bit long and a low button stance because he likes that kind of thing. But it looked like almost identical to like a cut of like a 1940s suit. Even like forward pleats and everything, very English inspired. And it's really good. He does really great stuff that really skirts the line between like classic contemporary and then like vintage,
Because
and that's why we kind of like him.
I think you could say that he doesn't do reproductions, but it's like he's like getting the vibe of it. And that's like a big part of the documentary is like they don't say vibe, but they don't say vibe in it. But it's like he wants to capture.
Yeah, he's like, you know what? I wanted to just vibe.
Vibe check.
Vibe check. Punch.
But yeah, he like really tries to capture the feeling of a certain thing.
Yeah.
And I think he does that very well.
Definitely. And so before we get to the documentary, I just want to mention, there are a couple of tiers of Ralph Lauren. Obviously, like we said a little bit ago, the mall brand stuff, like the ones you find in a department store, like a I don't know, Nordstrom, I don't know what it is.
They sell them in Macy's, I don't know where else.
Okay, yeah. But like those are kind of like the lower tier stuff. Like he's primarily known for like, his Purple Label, which I think is one of the highest ones.
I think that is the highest one.
That's the highest one, yeah. Which are found in his standalone stores, his own retail stuff, which we'll also get into. He also does what we definitely love, Double RL, which is like
my favorite line.
Well, I mean, mine too.
That's closer to his straight up like reproduction stuff.
Yeah,
it's like maybe he'll use like different like fun cloth or whatever, But for the most part, it's like you can find analogs to almost everything he's making.
He's done like belt back stuff,
and military surplus, or even tailoring.
Yeah,
and those are incredible. Like those suits that you see at the Double RL store, it's like perfect. Because they're like fucking like belt backs. They got the soft shoulders. They're 30s just with soft shoulders. It's incredible.
Which is exactly what I'm about, for tailoring. And so he has that, which is I would argue it's like his pet project.
Yeah, because I've heard it's never been profitable, but it's like that's like his favorite one.
And we were also concerned, like when he handed off the company, that he was going to shut that down, or the new CEO was going to shut it down. And I think they actually closed like a couple of stores, like smaller ones. But luckily, the ones that we've been to are still around. But anyway, that's our little overview on Ralph Lauren.
Oh, let's not forget our fallen brother Rugby from the prep renaissance of like the late 2000s or whatever.
R.I.P. Fred Castleberry, right? Yeah. Apparently, for those who don't know, I think that's where Fred got his start in menswear, and I think he joined like a couple of years before it closed, which worked out for him. I mean, because he's been very successful with his own brand.
Where does Polo sit? Is that like just above? Because it's like there's Ralph Lauren like jeans or not jeans. He has another line that's kind of
like jeans by Ralph Lauren.
It's like kind of lower end, like Double RL a little bit. They also have that in like department stores.
Yeah, I don't really know. I guess we could have done.
We should have done more research on his different lines, but it doesn't really matter because I don't think we're really talking about that.
Yeah, this is more of just a discussion.
But where does Polo fit into it? Is that like mid tier?
I feel like yes, because I feel like Polo is sold both in his own stores and in department stores, and I'm pretty sure there's also distinction there. Like
and
the
used
color
to be
of the label.
Denim and Supply. That's right.
There it is.
Thank you to Killstorm.
Baller name, by the way.
Yeah, but I used to be kind of down on Polo because it's like at least the stuff that I would see in the mall, I was like, this isn't very good. But there's a Polo outlet by the AMC that like I go to see movies. And I walk by the window displays. I'm like, fuck, they have some good shit in there.
Yeah, it's interesting because like Ralph Lauren is one of those case studies that people often cite. That's like an example of like great branding, but it's also an example they give to regular menswear people who are starting out. Like, oh, just because you're buying something from an outlet does not mean you're getting the same quality or design. So Ralph kind of like, I mean, he's one of the best, arguably, if not the best American designer of our time. But it's interesting that he kind of falls on both of these spectrums, like brand diffusion versus, super high quality stuff. It's interesting. And so I guess now it gives a good segue to kind of discuss him as a whole for the documentary now. So one thing, first off, the music in the documentary is so fucking weird. It's so...
At the beginning, it says it's like original score by this person, but it really sounds like it's from like a royalty-free library.
Yeah, and my hypothesis is that it is a royalty-free library, but they're all composed by one guy, so you could actually technically say the whole score is provided by one dude.
Yeah.
I just don't think it was written expressly for this documentary.
Yeah, it was like all very like cliche stuff. It's like when Ralph was growing up in like in Queens or Brooklyn or whatever, things were tough, and then they played this like this like R&B like rock and roll like riff.
If you guys haven't seen Documentary Now and the episode on the Blue Jean Committee,
it's exactly the same music they use.
They talk about Chicago and they play like some bluesy riff.
Yep.
And like that's the point. They're making fun of the whole thing,
When he talks about it's like Ralph loved the old movie stars, they play this like totally generic like fucking like Glenn Miller or like Artie Shaw style jazz thing.
Yeah, and then the opening titles is like some like randomly like Forrest Gump main title knockoff inspirational orchestral music. It's like all the names, all the illustrations flashing by. But it opens up with Audrey Hepburn giving him his Lifetime Achievement Award. Yeah, and I think it's funny because she says like she always smiles or something when she thinks of him. Like she can't think of anyone else for like American style, which is literally true. I don't think because America is such a melting pot of it's a melting pot of stuff. Quote. There's a quote of the day on that one.
It's America's a fondue.
Yeah, but you get a lot of like everything. I think even in our episode with the dressing down of menswear or whatever. Bruce Boyer says like nowadays it's hard to determine like specific styles, like Italian or whatever. But I think like Ralph Lauren, like for American stuff, you think of a little bit of everything, but if you could put it to one man, it would probably be Ralph Lauren.
But he also like does everything. Like he does like the
English,
preppy shit.
American.
Yeah, no, but I'm like talking about specifically American styles.
Yeah.
Because he does like the preppy New England. He does kind of like he did like his like Madison Avenue, like man in the gray flannel suit stuff. He has like Double RL, which is like like workwear. It's like fucking like Southwestern stuff, like cowboy. He does it all, man.
Turquoise, blanket cardigans, everything. And it's truly a testament to like his pursuit of whatever he likes. I think and all the talking heads in the beginning when they talk about like him growing up and his old pictures, there's one of him wearing like fucking like an Oxford rolled up with like shorts and like knee-high socks and loafers, and like or
he's wearing like a short, like a Melton Wool like short jacket with like those like vintage moose sweaters, which again, that's just what people wore at the time. But you're like, this is very Ralph.
Yeah, like in the early 50s and stuff, when he was a kid. But like, the voiceover is like, I think it's his brother or something, where they were like, even back in the day, like he always knew exactly how he wanted to dress. Like he always had a very distinctive style. There's one anecdote where he like goes to a friend's house and he sees like his friend's dad, who has like a bunch of shoes with shoe trees in it, and like I think he recalls Ralph saying like, that's what I want to do,
because he was like, I have all my shoes in a pile, and it's like, hey, me too.
It's funny because that's how me and Spencer used to have our shoes, and then we have shoe racks.
I just got another shoe rack because my old shoe rack didn't fit enough shoes. So if anyone wants a free shoe rack, hit me up.
And then, so what's next in the story? He gets married to Ricky. I think it's funny.
I also want to say it's like, they talk about him in high school. He would like go out and buy vintage stuff, and I think it's like, just for context, like he was growing up. Like, do you know how the whole like vintage clothing trend started? Because I know.
Go ahead.
So this was right around the time that he was growing up in New York City. There was a couple that found.
Forget about it.
Yeah. There was I think I might be getting some of the details mixed up, but there was a couple that found like just a crate full of like 1920s raccoon coats.
Okay.
And they were like, "Oh, this is kind of cool." And so they started selling those to their friends. Their friends were like, "Okay, where can you get more of these?" So they would go to like thrift stores, antique stores, and just find more. And then, of course, there was a big trend of people having roaring 20s parties and gay 90s parties, like the 1890s, where everyone was gay.
Edwardian stuff.
And it was like, that was kind of how it started. And so he was growing up right in the middle of that.
Yeah, just like how now we still have 90s parties.
We have gay 90s parties.
Gay 90s parties and roaring 20s parties. Yeah. Except the roaring 20s parties are happening now.
Every party you go to is a roaring 20s party.
If someone in the future finds this, just know that this was made in the 2020s.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, I think I vaguely remember you telling me that before. And that's also one reason why people have such a costumey vision of what the olden times were, to them, to the 20s and teens and whatnot, because people just, it was like stuff from like 40 years ago. Obviously back in like the 90s, not everyone dressed cool.
Nope.
With like Ralph Lauren or light wash jeans.
I'd say most people did not dress cool in the 90s.
Yeah, but teens today think it's all great and everything. You see on TikTok or like people thrifting on Instagram and everything. So it's like that kind of like idealization of what it was back then. And that's why I'm surprised, because it's like, wow, people in the 50s were kind of nostalgic in a sense, at least for clothing, and like, oh yeah, we should wear this stuff because, if when you think in context wise, it still wasn't very fashionable to stand out until like maybe in like, I don't know, the 70s maybe. But even then, you'd still be caught dead if you're wearing like a Mad Men suit while everyone else is wearing kind of like disco bell bottoms.
You have to go back farther. You have to, because it's like, you can't be a couple years out of date. You have to be like 20, 30 years out of date. Exactly. Well, because there is the idea of a 30-year nostalgia cycle.
Yes. Yeah. And I'm sure you guys have all heard that one. But yeah, so it's cool to see Ralph had this kind of like nostalgic, very specific view of what clothing he wanted.
Mm-hmm.
And then, of course, there's that story of him, starting to make ties where he had this very specific view of what ties are, but he doesn't know how to sew himself, so he got like a tie maker, started making them under his label. And then he went to Bloomingdale's, and he's like, here we go. And okay, so this is like what, early 60s, maybe like 1960s?
Mid 60s, I think.
Mid-60s, okay. So
his brand started in 67.
Okay, yeah.
But it's like he started, I think he started selling clothes like earlier than that.
Like 63.
Like there's an article, they cite an article about him in some like trade magazine that was from like 1964 or something.
Yeah, and so to keep in mind here, he says in the documentary that he wanted them to be wider, he wanted them to be bolder. And at this time, it was still, it wasn't Sergeant Pepper's Lonely Clothes Band. It was like still very Mad Men style, like we didn't get the wild late 60s Austin Powers stuff yet. So he was like ahead of his time.
Oh yeah, by like a couple years he was like ahead of his time.
Yeah, he wanted like the thick knot or whatever. And so in the documentary he says like he went to Bloomingdale's to the tie buyer, and he was like, the tie buyer was like, oh yeah, for a couple things, could you make them like less wild, slimmer, and take off your label? And then apparently Ralph was like, nope, and walked away.
Do department stores still work like that? You could just go in and like go to their buyer.
Well, I don't know about going. I'm pretty sure you have to set appointments now and go to Pity. And I'm sure at Bloomingdale's you have tie maker. No, sorry, at Pity you have tie makers, and Bloomingdale's reps go to Pity and they. But
you can't just be like a guy and go into a Bloomingdale's like.
Just like you can't today, you can't be a Bible salesman or a globe salesman door to door.
Pencil salesman. I do also want to talk a little bit about, like, just briefly about, like, what he said when he first got married to his wife, Ricky. He was living my dream, which is living in New York City, being married to a total smoke show, and just going to antique stores and buying interesting things.
Yeah, what a cool dude, right?
Yeah, seriously.
What's that feel like?
What does that feel like?
I think it's really sweet that, like, they've been together for so long, and later on in the documentary he says, like, all of his like designs come from like, what would my wife look good in?
Yeah,
and she looks good in everything.
She looks good in everything. It's incredible.
Yeah, I think that's really great.
Yeah.
So yeah, obviously Bloomingdale stocked his ties eventually, and then he started like, people kept asking, okay, what else can you give us? And so he started to do like men's and like, and that's when like his suits started coming out. Like, of course he is not a traditional designer. They keep saying this the whole time. Like he doesn't do a lot of his own sketches. He has people do it, but like he has this way of communicating his ideas to people, and they're able to make it. And he'll just give feedback, and change. Just kind of like how George Lucas and Ralph McQuarrie, Star Wars wasn't visualized until Ralph McQuarrie came in and he was, drawing what an X-wing was going to look like, or what the Death Star or Stormtroopers were going to look like.
What if it was?
I say this because I was talking to my mom about this. Yeah.
Ralph Lauren designed Star Wars.
And Ralph McQuarrie made clothes.
Oh, man.
1970.
Hell yeah, baby.
Yeah. But yeah, no, it was clear, like Ralph wore his own clothing, like you'll see it, like he was wearing, they even say it, very 30s inspired. He wanted to look like an old film, but of course with a couple of like modern tweaks. The pants were a little bit flared out. The button stance, of course, is trademark Ralph Lauren, very low compared to like what it was back in the day. But you get like belt backs, you get wide lapels, low gorges, and everything.
And I was saying, it's like, I don't know if this is true, but it's like, there, if you buy vintage stuff, if you can't afford true 30 stuff, or you're a bigger guy, your best bet is to get 70s does 30 stuff, because a lot of designers in the 70s were borrowing from 1930s designs. I get the impression from the documentary that he kind of started that.
Yeah, no, me too. I mean, again, I don't know. Maybe Bruce Boyer will have a good indication of how exactly that came about. But according to them, it seemed like he was ahead of his time, and he kind of brought that in there.
Because they straight up have, it's like an article headline that's like 1930s designs like on modern suits, something along those lines.
Yeah, it was like, whoa, look at this Ralph Lipschitz guy.
Oh, Lipschitz. Yeah. No, it was something else, wasn't it?
No, it's Lipschitz.
Okay,
I'm pretty sure.
It might be. I can't remember if that's. I mean, that is the name of the baby doctor from from Rugrats. But
I'm pretty sure it's Ralph Lifshitz. Yeah, I just looked it up right now. Ralph Lauren, nay Lifshitz.
Okay.
Lif with an F.
Okay, Lif, not lip.
Not lip. Yeah. Anyway, yeah, there's a whole thing about how, like, his brother was saying, like, oh, they think that Ralph had this grand vision in mind, but it turns out, like, they just got teased a lot, and his older brother, or his, I don't know which, because
I thought it was funny like, when his brother was introduced with the last name Lauren, and I'm like, oh, his brother changed his name too, but it's like, no, it was his idea.
It was his idea, because, like, they got tired of being called
shit
boy.
The
shits. Yeah. But there's an interesting, like, anti-Semitic part where, like, when he started getting traction, like, these like, people would be like, oh, it's just like a Jew from New York just giving us more trying to dictate fashion to us or whatever. And there's a good, there's like an article, or there's a talking head with a Jewish, his name's Cohen, I think, it's a Jewish reporter, and he was like, he felt really like kind of camaraderie with Ralph, like, yeah, like, we're doing this American, we're doing the American dream, we're trying to be successful in spite of, these anti-Semitic beliefs. But, of course he did change his name to Ralph Lauren, and it kind of just sounded cool. And on the subject of sounding cool, when he made his first brand, Polo, there's some interview with him where he's like, yeah, I wanted to call it some sport brand, but you couldn't call it basketball or soccer, so we went with Polo because it sounded cool.
Yeah.
And it does. I mean, Polo is one of the most, elegant or fancy
and it's like
American sports.
At this point, people definitely think about Polo the brand over Polo the sport.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, it's like when you hear Polo, you probably don't think about... like maybe Marco Polo, the game.
The pool game.
Yeah, then Marco Polo, the man. Those are the only two things that might
He was on the Silk Road, and he was like, Marco, and someone's like, Polo, I'm over here, boss.
That's it. Those are the only things I could think of that might rank above Polo, the brand, as, like, capturing people's imaginations.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. But yeah, it's so interesting to see. And, by the way, these the documentary is intercut with, like, different interviews with him. There's a couple times, when he's modern here, sometimes when he's like in the 80s or 90s, like appearing on, like, I don't know, he was talking to Tom Brokaw, which is good. And Tom Brokaw apparently is a big fan of Ralph Lauren.
He's a lowhead.
Yeah, he's a lowhead.
Yeah.
But it's cool because, like, when you see all these, like, these intercut documentary footage, whatever, he's dressed like the same. Like, the ideas are the same. There was
an ABC article or interview he did a while back, I believe.
Yeah.
Where he was wearing this, like, flannel shirt, and it's like I can't remember who the reporter was. I think it was someone big probably, but she was like, oh, is this
Diane Sawyer?
It might have been, I don't know, but it was like, oh,
Trivia.
is this flannel yours? And he said, no, I got this at Kmart in the 70s. And he's, like, still wearing it, and it's like he still has all. Yeah, it's like he had a very consistent look. He always looks great.
Yeah, he's it's fun to see because, like, his effect on people is, it's very clear. Like, whenever I see someone wear a tuxedo top with, like, jeans and cowboy boots, it's definitely always going to be inspired by Ralph Lauren because he did that.
He does that, like, a lot.
Yeah. No, yeah. There's pictures of him, like maybe, like, early 80s where he's wearing, like, a fucking, like, Casablanca white dinner jacket with, like, jeans and boots. And then you see it, like, recently when he did his 50th year thing. That's when he walks out in, and it's fucking iconic, And I just think it's funny because, you see, like, Waco, or Waco is the founder of Revolution magazine and the Rake, who has met Ralph Lauren a couple of times. Every time you see him in an interview, he always talks about it. He's also in the documentary.
Yep.
But there's another guy who is a cutter, I think, for Michael Andrews Bespoke in New York. I saw it because occasionally I watch menswear YouTubers every once in a while. And He Spoke Style, Brian Sakawa, has a partnership with them, and they're talking about black tie attire, and they feature this cutter. And sure enough, his outfit is inspired by Ralph Lauren, where he wears, like, a black dinner jacket, bow tie, totally normal top half with black skinny jeans and fucking cowboy boots. And, it's a Ralph Lauren, it's an American thing because it's a very subversive, non-traditional look. And I think that's, like, kind of the theme of, like, Ralph Lauren. I mean, you saw him wear, chambray denim westerners with light wash jeans, big old belt buckle. He still does that. When you see him, like, in the documentary, giving pointers to models, choosing outfits, putting stuff together, he is wearing those outfits. He's also wearing, like, like a 30s inspired Argyle sweater vest with like chinos and like a white Oxford, looking like a fucking like 60s college student. He still looks fucking great.
And I think, I mean, they talk about this at the beginning where it's like when his brother was talking about he would go and he would look great in whatever he wears. And I think it's like, if you want to talk about fucking sprezzatura, it's like he has it. It's like all his suits are very, like he tends to wear very like structured suits and all that stuff. But he looks just as natural as that as he does in like a grizzly jacket or whatever on his ranch. Like
there was one like he's wearing like a vest over like a denim jacket over it. He loves layering.
Yeah.
But yeah, like whenever I see him like in these interviews, he's wearing, I think it's like a black DB. It's like huge fucking shoulder pads, but he's wearing kind of like a narrow tie with a spread collar shirt that I think is pretty modern. It's, if you think about it, if you modernize the whole thing, it looks like a very Milanese inspired look, but he looks so fucking cool. And it's like in the 80s or early 90s, just sitting there cross-legged on like a director's chair giving this interview, talking about his process, and it's fucking cool.
Yeah, great guy.
Yeah. yeah. I can't think of some other outfits that are, I'm sure we can go back and screenshot or find some screenshots from it.
I also I want to give a shout out to all the Ralph Lauren executives that they interview, because it's like, maybe I haven't looked at enough fashion executives, but I assume that they're all like competent dressers. Like maybe the guys probably wear like pretty good suits, but otherwise it might be a little bit boring. All the Ralph Lauren executives they interviewed, including members of his own family, which probably helps, looked great.
His older brother, or I don't know if he's older or whatever, but like his brother, who looks to me like an older Kyle Chandler. Yeah. Miss Chandler Bong. Like he wears like a polo shirt, but like, like the runaway collar over a fucking DB, and he's like he's an old guy, and he looks fucking cool, and I think that
one woman who was like originally she was like a fashion critic or something that came to work with him, right?
Yeah.
She was very like double RL. She looked really cool.
Oh
too.
Yeah. Like I think like a Chimayo vest or like something, and I mean, I'm sure they dressed a couple. Well, I don't know, because you get like Karl Lagerfeld, you get who's the Batman guy? Fucking
Adam West.
No, the guy who directed the worst Batman of all time.
Oh, Joel Schumacher.
Yeah, he's dressed really well. I don't know if
he's a dandy, man. Lauren,
but like you look at say Jessica Chastain, and she's wearing like she looks like a Ralph Lauren model. I don't know if she ever did before, but like she's wearing like a white shirt with like a camel DB. Coat, and the lapels look very like Ralph Lauren has very distinctive lapels, just because I'm a lapel fetishist. Another great quote for people to repeat at me later.
Yep.
But like he has a very like, it's like a low gorge, horizontal, but like it's very sharp. There's not a lot of belly to it. And you can see that on all of his lapels. You see it on Jessica Chastain. I bring this up because I'm pretty sure Woody Allen dressed himself. Who, for some fucking reason, is in this documentary.
There are 3 people who are on the Epstein flight logs in this documentary.
Hashtag TrueAnon.
Yeah.
Check it out.
Yeah, but
who are they? Say it.
Well, Woody Allen, Naomi Campbell, and and Hillary Clinton. They all appear in this documentary.
I thought you were gonna tell me someone really random or something, but those are names I remember when. Our friends over at TrueAnon gave a list of people who are connected to Jeffrey Epstein.
Yeah, but
who did not kill himself.
Listen up for a future episode. Hint, hint, hint.
Hint, hint. Wink, wink. No, yeah. So like, Woody Allen for some reason is in this, and he just says something like, "Oh, I always liked Ralph Lauren. I buy him, or whatever." Well, he's wearing like a shirt that looks like it was just unfolded yesterday.
It's crazy. But what's confusing to me is like all the times they talk to Woody Allen, they don't talk about Annie Hall. Because Diane Keaton's look in that movie is so iconic and started a whole fashion trend in the late 70s with women. And that was all Ralph Lauren. That was like, he designed that.
I also wish they talked about fucking him dressing the Gatsby movie.
Yeah, exactly. Which they like have pictures of it.
Yeah, and they mentioned Ralph Lauren's like, oh, he was very inspired. Like when people saw him back and they're like, oh, it's a modern day Gatsby. And I'm like, talk about the fucking thing.
Yeah.
But they didn't.
I kind of wish they talked about more of his like work in movies, because they talk about how much he loves movies. They talk about how if he wasn't,
they even have gratuitous like footage of like I don't know. I forgot their fucking names. Clark Gable or whatever.
Yep. But they say that if he wasn't a fashion designer, he would be a movie director.
Which is a common theme for a lot of menswear people.
Yeah.
Fred Castleberry. Tom Ford has directed movies.
And if we want to get into his advertisements, that seems like kind of his thing.
Yeah. He, it's interesting because they have a really good talking head in the moment too. It wasn't like an afterthought. Like they recorded this guy who's a model, and he's saying like, yeah, when I got here, they said, okay, this house you think about it as you just inherited from your recently deceased uncle, but the family doesn't know about it yet. However, take that in the direction wherever you want it. And he's like, okay, and he did it.
And it's because it's like it's the same kind of thing. Well, not really the same thing as Drake's, but they say a lot of the times they don't use like professional models for their like video ads. They try to get like either people they know, just like kind of more regular looking people. I don't know if this is true because all the people in their ads are very good looking.
So. Yeah. Also, I mean, they did say like the black guy who. I forgot his name. It's really bad.
We'll include all these names
in the show notes. Yeah, but he used like a black guy in a suit in a time where you wouldn't normally think to put that. Using featuring like Naomi Campbell. Like black supermodels and everything. Again, like what I said, like what Spencer says, like they say that they didn't use a lot of people, but then a lot of people that they feature in the documentary are kind of big names, so it's interesting there. But like apparently one of the ads was like some fashion executive's husband who was like a professor who happened to like look really good in suits, and so they got him to be in it.
Or there was that magazine ad that they talk about where there are no clothes, like not naked people.
Oh yeah, people, period. So yeah, it's when Bruce Weber was shooting it, and he shot a frame of this green barn in the forest or whatever, and Ralph was like, that's it, we're gonna put Ralph Lauren Home or whatever on it, that's it.
And I totally get it, because you look at that and I'm like, I know, like I get this.
Yeah, and Bruce said was like, it's like the ballsiest move anyone's ever done for like a fashion, like an advertising thing. But yeah, you can see a cinematic eye through everything. It's all very composed. I wish they said more about his process with it, but I'm sure that he's very involved. He knew exactly what he wanted. You have like a shot that reminds me of Gatsby of like people all dressed in white where the dad is using like an old camera filming the people. He's filming his family, which is analogous to like in Gatsby when Leo is doing that. When like Nick and Daisy are like doing golf on like the fucking whatever the
pier,
the Hudson Pier. I don't know, whatever it is. But yeah, it's a weird. It's so cool, to see such a specific eye to every aspect of it, because like they say over and over again that he's very aware of like the brand. He's not. He's like, okay, what is a Ralph Lauren brand? Like, what is coming from him? And he always has to like search deep and find what that is. And he even says like it's a very difficult process for him to kind of constantly be working, because in fashion you're working maybe like at least 2 seasons ahead, and he still has a very big part in this.
Yeah, they talk about people they talk about how he went on vacation when they were in the middle of working on like a collection, and he came back and he's like, scrap the whole thing, like this isn't right, I have a new idea. Did they mention what that specific collection was?
I don't know. I think they said it was like floral or something, and then when he came back, it's like, nope, we're doing all gray flannel.
Oh, that's
cashmere or whatever. And I mean, it worked out. I mean, like he's a very he does a lot of classic flannel looks across all of his collections. I do think it's cool when he says that not everything he does is like a winner, but he does admit that everything he does comes from him. Like he doesn't really pursue trends. I don't know how specific that is, when it comes down the pipeline of when they actually have to sell it. But like he did active wear as fashion a long time ago, in like the 90s or whatever. So
I want to talk about like his
or the 80s,
his like home stuff, because it's like do you remember when they said that he started working on?
I'm not entirely sure, but they said at the time like no designer was trying to be like as vertical as that or whatever. But yeah, Ralph Lauren Home,
because it's like I've talked to you this about like composers, where I don't understand how someone their brain can work so that like when they're writing a piece of music, like the string section is going to do this, and they know exactly how every instrument is going to work together. Ralph Lauren is kind of the same way, because it's like he he does everything. Like, he makes clothes, he makes like furniture, he makes like housewares. I'm like, I don't understand how you like have so cohesive a vision or whatever that he can just do it all.
Yeah, personally, I think that it just comes from being a very specific person.
Yeah.
You know, like, clearly, when he did his first fashion show, I think they said like it was in his office, which was like a second living room, had like a fireplace and like a fucking desk, and it's inherently a part of his brand.
Yeah.
And just making stuff based on that. Like, if he's like, oh, I love a leather couch in like a wooden home or whatever, wooden room, you just make that.
Yeah.
So I just think like, when you get to that level, especially with clothes, you have that where like a lot of designers, men and women, tend to be like also really good at interior design, and again, like in the case of Tom Ford, you do women's as well, and you also fucking make movies.
Yep.
You have this an aesthetically driven eye, and mind, and even then, even if he isn't, as well as being a very good designer and big at branding, he was one of the first people to do standalone retail shops, which is, of course, today you think of like fucking, I don't know, J. Crew, Banana Republic at your local mall, but back then,
everything was
vintage is it's all department stores, independent menswear stores, and people would just be like makers or designers only, and people would stock your thing. So that's why it was a big deal that he got into Bloomingdale's.
And they say in the documentary, it's like everyone was like, no, don't do this. It's a horrible idea, and also you're biting the hands that feeds you because you're gonna piss off Bloomingdale's. And he's like, no, people are gonna see the standalone store and they're gonna like want to buy it from Bloomingdale's.
And that's exactly what happened.
Yeah.
Like, both things increased. I mean, they did say that a couple of times, like, they did overextend themselves. I think that's when he started doing like women's lines or and I think by luck Bloomingdale's actually, I think, bailed him out or something like that. They gave him the money, or they fronted the money.
They talked, because it's like early on he almost like lost the company or something. And then they interview the guy, I think, in the documentary that was like, okay, well, we're going to bail him out. And he came back.
Yeah. And so, it's... The whole documentary is just really cool. It's like a little over, like almost 2 hours long. And it finishes with the 50th anniversary of Ralph Lauren, which is like, like a retrospective, if you will. They do it in like fucking Central Park's... I don't know what that fucking bridge is called, but they do it there. That's like anybody who's anybody is there. Like fucking Steven Spielberg is there, and they do it, and it's really nice to like see how much people and the world appreciates Ralph Lauren, And something that surprised me watching is that he's a very quiet guy.
Yeah.
Like I've seen videos of like maybe, and it could just be because he's older now. He talks slower or whatever. Because I've seen like videos of like, say, like Tom Ford talking, and Tom Ford's a very evocative, it's like an 8-year-old video, but there's a video of him like dressing people for GQ. You see like a feature on GQ.com or GQ YouTube. But Ralph doesn't strike me as that kind of guy. He's kind of very like understated, very, like I do what I like. I don't care if you don't like it,
Because I mean, he doesn't do like a whole lot of interviews.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's like, again, maybe because he's older. Like, I don't know if he did a lot of interviews in the 80s and 90s. But yeah, there's like, you don't really see a whole lot of interviews with him.
Yeah. And it's just really nice to see,
Yeah, they talk about how much like his family seems very like tight knit. He's still like very much in love with his wife. He loves his kids, and he says he wants to spend he doesn't have a lot of free time. He wants to spend his free time with them. Yeah,
and doing it this way, he couldn't imagine himself doing anything else. Like, this at least lets him be connected as much as he can to his family, and his muse, which again I think is super cool to like, dress your wife and, your wife be accepting of that. I don't know many women who would love to be dressed by a man or their significant other. But it's super cool to watch. You can see one of my favorite outfits. I think he's wearing like a navy blue turtleneck or something. But then when the camera shows like a wide shot, he's wearing like purple cord pants.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
And I'm like, hell yeah, dude. I've kind of wanted one ever since I saw Ethan Newton wear purple moleskin pants with a blue blazer, and it has, I think I asked him about it, and he's like, yeah, it's kind of like a English fuck you, old money kind of look, and I'm like, that's exactly why I want to wear it, and again, it's really cool. I think I've written about this a little bit with the artist in the studio article that I did, but like, it's cool to see him, like, when they interview him, he's like in his office or in his like living room, and it's such a cool look and aesthetic. There's a lot of books lots of Americana, Americana through him, because it's a lot of like gifts that his people have made for him, lots of polo bears.
I still want a physical polo bear. Yeah, it would be cool. Yep. It
would be, the reason I bring it up is because again, like I think I mentioned this before, I'm in like, different Asian American groups, and one of them is called Subtle Asian Aesthetics, and occasionally some people will post pictures of their room, and a lot of people today, it doesn't have to be Asian, but like I think people tend to go for a more minimalistic room, kind of modern, like white furniture. But there's something about like the Americana maximalism. Oh, yeah. I don't know what the correct term is, but our friend Doug has a great apartment. I think personally it's inspired by Ralph. It can't not be. But you got like all these like indigo blankets, Chamorro blankets, Pendleton blankets, like draped over stuff. Leather couches, leather chairs, yep. And books and all, and it's a very cool, like that's how I would decorate. I think me and Spencer are both.
Yeah, no, I for the first time in a long time care about how my room looks, and so I'm like getting like decor. I'm like getting new bed sheets and everything, and that's kind of what I'm going for.
Yeah, no, I still like what what's his name? What Don Draper's apartment looks like. I feel like, that's the whole point of being. Being able to decorate your own thing, when you are able to kind of combine what you like and have something that's totally your own. I think if that's the theme of the documentary, basically, like Ralph Lauren has been able to make a business out of his pursuit of his own creativity, and not only be successful, but like not cheat himself out of it. Like he's not giving up anything. I don't know if that's still possible nowadays. With how often. How businesses go out of business, or people social media people have to try and like cop out in some places, but Ralph Lauren definitely was at the right place at the right time, and he was able to kind of do it from living in some random apartment in, I don't know where it was, Queens or something.
Queens, Brooklyn.
We're just
the 5 boroughs. If you put them together, it makes a fist.
Yeah, going from like having a fake apartment that was like painted to look like wood, but it really wasn't, to like having a fucking ranch and buying a mansion just to sell stuff in New York, the Rhinelander mansion, and having a fucking polo bar,
which we didn't get to go to, but
it's okay because we could not afford that.
We're probably right.
Yeah, we can just go get Ralph's.
I think the last thing we haven't touched on from the documentary before we get into, I don't know, final thoughts, whatever.
Yeah.
Blowheads.
Oh yeah.
That was an interesting section. I'm always like kind of fascinated by it because it's like such a preppy brand. But yeah, it's like these guys managed, for those of you who do not know, Lowheads is like, I don't know how to describe it. It's like predominantly like lower class, like
African American.
Yeah, African American, like black teenagers. This was like a big thing in the 80s and 90s. They would wear like all polo.
Yeah, sometimes they would steal it.
Yeah, which they talk about in the documentary, but it's like they all look really cool. They wanted
to be a piece of that, yeah.
Yeah, because it's like, it's all like individually, they're all like very preppy items, but they make it look very like streetwear the way they style it.
Something I was thinking of is like, when you're stealing something, you just grab whatever you have, right? Yeah. And so maybe these guys would get like stuff that was too big for them, but they'd wear it anyway. I feel like that's a thing, I feel like I've read that somewhere, and it worked out for them, and they even say like they were able to recontextualize this very waspy American style stuff, even when Ralph himself was not waspy.
Yeah.
And it's like, again, like that's the whole idea of like idealizing and creating this kind of universe that people can be a part of just by buying it. And these Lowheads were able to kind of do that in their own way. And yeah, that's why, that's one reason why Ralph Lauren is so iconic, because you can see him in everything, whether it's furniture, whether it's, Western wear to fucking streetwear.
Yeah. Because, they even talked to, they interviewed Kanye West, too.
Yep.
Like, because when he got started, he was wearing the pink polos and shit. Like, that was, like, his look.
it's it's all about like kind of like subversion too. Like people don't think that back then African Americans or so could like wear that stuff, and so they did, and then they did it in their own way, and it's really cool that they included that little facet onto the in the documentary. Anyway, we're wrapping up now. I mean, I think it's really cool. You guys should definitely watch it.
Oh yeah, please.
It's on HBO. I don't know. There's always the alternative methods if you want to.
There's always my way.
There's always
hanging
my
yourself.
Way out. Yeah. The first thing you see before St. Peter is the Ralph Lauren documentary, Very Ralph.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. But yeah, definitely do watch. It's really fun. Watch it with your menswear friends. Point out all the cool shit you'd wear, which is what we did. But yeah.
Oh wait, just want to shout out Ralph Lauren, Taste King. He calls out The Aviator, incredible movie. I think it's kind of like overlooked. And my man drinks Coors Banquet, which is
sure
what I get at bars.
I don't even drink coffee.
So hell yeah, guy.
Yeah. I do want to like a couple of our friends have worked at Double RLs and Ralph Lauren and stuff, and they always have good things to say. It's
I
cool
still love Double RL. I mean, I've never bought any Double RL like retail, but I get a lot of it secondhand on eBay.
Yeah,
which you can find for pretty cheap. I mean, a lot of the coats and stuff you can't, but like smaller items like shirts or whatever you can get.
Oh, definitely.
You can get for under $50.
Yeah. So check all that shit out. We'll include all this in our show notes and everything. But yeah, I'm gonna close off now with a couple of questions from our submissions. If you haven't, please go give us some questions. We do like 2 or so, and we're gonna run out eventually, I'm sure.
Oh no! You gotta ask us more questions, guys.
I know. Here is a question for Spencer.
Oh, a question for me.
This is from Seth. I'm 24 with a quickly receding hairline.
Okay.
When did you make the decision to go for broke and start shaving your head? Any tips for aspiring chrome domes? Captain Phasma? Would also be interested in a broader discussion of hair care and menswear. I'll let Spencer answer it first, and I'll talk about, I guess, me.
I don't know, like 2 years ago, and I just did it because I was like...
You got closer and closer each time before you did it, too.
Yeah, completely shaving. Because it's like it was...
buzzed, yeah.
Yeah, because it's like at first I didn't want to go like full bald because I thought that would be too big a transition.
Weenie Hut Juniors.
And maybe it was a good thing that I didn't go all the way at first because that might have like scared me or something. I don't know. But I did it because I just was tired of it being something that I thought about every day. And so I was like, you know what? Like I'm just gonna own it. And so I do not regret it. Right now, I normally shave like every other day in the shower. Right now I haven't for a while because me and my friends are gonna be doing a mob surveillance style photo shoot, and so I'm kind of trying to have like Tony Soprano hair. So
okay,
yeah,
sure. In terms of, hair care is not a thing that I really talk about in general, just because I'm not that kind of blogger. I keep it to about clothes and fashion, photography, and so I don't think we're going to be talking about hair care in menswear. I will say,
because I mean you don't have much of a routine, right? Because you don't use product.
I don't use product in my hair at all. My hair is like this all the time. I used to have the undercut where it was parted to one side, and now I do the center part because I've been leaning into the whole artist e-boy, whatever you want to call it. But yeah, I don't know. I really have no advice or anything to give for hair care. You kind of just have to find what makes you look good and just do that.
Yeah.
But yeah, thank you, Seth, for the question there. And our next question is from Aaron. How do you find a good tailor? I have tried different ones, and no one seems to understand high-rise, wide leg, no break, but not cropped, etc.
I found my tailor based on recommendations.
Okay.
Because that's the vintage store that I went to. Everyone that worked there and most of the people that shopped there use the same tailor.
Yeah.
So I mean, if there are people in your area that are stylish that you trust, ask them where they get their clothes tailored and go there. But if not, Yelp is probably pretty good.
Yeah, same for me. All of mine have been suggested to me, whether it's Spencer telling me about Ruben down in OC, or Mark Chevalier telling me about Academy Taylor in Pasadena, which is where I live, so it's looked out because I used to go to Ruben all the time. Yeah. But yeah, I would suggest finding a tailor that has worked with suits, and by that I mean who has made suits, not someone who I wouldn't go to like an alterationist at like a dry cleaner, because if you can't, that's fine. I mean,
I've done that for like really small stuff, for like repairs, when I like don't want to drive like 35-40 minutes to go to my tailor. But generally, for anything complicated, I take it to Ruben.
I would just say it's worth it. Just do everything by like a person you trust, because if a guy has made suits, he'll know what you're talking about.
I've seen some advice on Reddit that's like take like a pair of like a couple pairs of pants to a couple different tailors. Whoever does it the best.
I guess.
But, I mean, that's a lot of work and a lot of money.
Yeah. And if this question is in terms of finding a custom tailor, I don't know how to answer that because I don't have a lot of bespoke things.
And all of them you've got through work, so.
Most of them I've got through work or through friends who do know it. So, because an alterationist cannot make your pants high rise or make them wide or make them, no break but not cropped. Honestly, you have to be able to show them pictures. In both, whether you're getting something bespoke or going to an alterationist, showing them exactly what you want is important. Pinch your leg and say like, okay, look how the drape of this, I want it to look like this. Just show them. Be as vocal and as explanatory as possible within reason, and don't be a jerk about it. But yeah, it's really, honestly, if you haven't lucked out, it's going to take you a while. Spencer and I have just been able to be fairly lucky in that we've found tailors, and in my case also custom tailors who kind of understand what we're talking about. But yeah, I'm sorry we're not able to, you just have to keep looking. Yeah. And it also, again, like I said, it helps to know exactly what you want. Because if you kind of go in there and you don't know what the difference between like a shivering break and a no break is, if you ask them to not give you a break, they might make it cropped just because you didn't tell them. Because to some people, no break means like hovering, and some people mean no break means like touching but not breaking, and so you have to just show them.
And I'm sure this is not the case for the people that listen to our podcast. But I've seen, again, I think on the same Reddit thread where people were like, how do I find a tailor? These Reddit dweebs just being like, I'm too shy to like tell my tailor what I want or whatever. It's like, I'm afraid I'm going to say something wrong, or it's like, I don't want to be too much of a bother. But it's like, then you're going to end up getting clothes that you don't like and blame it on the tailor. It's like, you have to be specific. It's their job. It's fine. Exactly. They're not going to take it personally.
Yeah, it's like if at a restaurant you get like, look, for me, I eat plain cheeseburgers. If it's not plain, I'll send it back. And I'll say, I'll usually eat it, but like say like, if you got the wrong food, you might as well tell them. Yeah. Also, you don't go to a restaurant and be like, I don't know, what do you think is good, and then not tell them what your preference is.
I remember we went to BJ's once. And I don't know if I don't think BJ's is like a local chain, but if listeners have not been to BJ's, the menu is huge. And we went with someone, and when the server came, they asked the server, "What's good here?"
And I think me and Spencer tried to bite ourselves.
Yeah, because it's like the menu is 40 pages long.
It's also like American food. Like, just get a fucking burger or pizza, bro. It's not that hard.
Classic American
I understand,
food.
like, you're going to, like, boba. Like, boba is different, but, like, come on, dude. Anyway, look out for the show notes. They're in the description of this episode. Follow us on Instagram. I am Ethan M. Wong.
I'm at Spencer DSO.
And you can follow the Style and Direction Instagram because we post pictures from the show notes there, as well as some quotes, because I tend to say some really weird shit every once in a while.
Quotables.
Quote. Oh, my God. Yep. R.I.P. Alex Trebek.
Oh, no.
Not yet, but I will be very sad to see him go. I am currently watching the... if we're talking about things we recommend, I'm currently watching the Greatest of All Time Championship, and I realize that they did it now because Alex Trebek may not be with us.
Jesus, dark.
You know.
Yeah, when he goes, Ralph Lauren goes. I mean, they're both getting up there. It's gonna be very sad.
Yeah. But anyway, you can go to @Style and Direction, all spelled out. What a segue.
What a segue. It's like the guy who invented the Segway who died driving his Segway off the cliff. What a segue. Yakov Smirnoff. Real? What a segue.
Is that real?
No, yeah, that happened. And Yakov Smirnoff, his like catchphrase was "What a country."
Oh.
But they're two different people.
There's one of my favorite jokes in 30 Rock is when the new CEO of Cabletown, who's like a super like nice American man who's very similar to Kenneth.
Yeah.
You know, he likes giving hugs, wearing Bugs Bunny ties. He goes like, "Jack, is this meeting going to take long? I've got tickets to Yakov Smirnoff's show tonight, and man, Russia's quite a country, I'll tell you that." And I think that's such a good joke.
Oh, man.
For those of you who don't know it, he's the guy who does the whole "in Russia, road fork you" or whatever shit. And I think that's funny that it's such a weird joke. It's not even a real joke. It's just a weird thing to say, a reference. We can talk about comedy in a future episode.
Mm-hmm.
But anyway, guys, we will see you in the next one, hopefully soon, because I know this one was a long time coming.
Christmas break.
It's the end of January.
Okay, long break.
Lunar New Year. Even though I'm Filipino.
Okay.
We'll see you in the next one.
Bye
bye. My wife. My other wife.
Okay.
Space goals. I wanted that in there. Okay.